step in the right direction. You saw them playing hard, and that's the expectation. They're not always going to be perfect, but we got to rock off the ball and finish people. And I felt like it started with that week of practice that they had last week to build some momentum going into this week. It's got to happen again, starting today on Tuesday. Is a big practice for us. So, we got to win the game up front in this game. That's no surprise to anybody, and they'll be a big part of it.
Fourth row middle, Pat Murphy, 24/7 Sports.
Brian, Coach Freeman said yesterday that he wants to be more aggressive in this game offensively than maybe he was a year ago. With the situation you guys have, still an offensive line kind of coming together, Kyle going on the road to a hostile environment for the first time, how do you manage a game like this maybe differently, or do you do anything differently given kind of those scenarios and going to a place like Notre Dame?
Well, I think you build up, in these first few games to figure out where you are going into this game, and you go from there. But I think that we got some confidence going into this game. We got a rhythm, so we got to have a great week of practice. But it's going to come down to winning the line of scrimmage for sure. It's going to come down to the fourth quarter, and who's going to be there in the end. And they have a really good team. Marcus does a great job. They have a great staff. So we got to go win a top 10 game on the road, and our guys are really excited for this game. You could see it Sunday. You could see it even yesterday, guys, buzzing around. And so now we got to have a great week of practice, and it's going to come down to, who wants to compete more.
Over here to the right, Don Berry, WBNS.
Coach, as you look at your football team right now going into this week, what do you think you're the most comfortable with offensively that you're doing?
I think we have a good balance. I think that's important when you talk about the wide receivers, the running backs, the tight ends. You've seen even in 3 games, I think multiple guys produce, and that's good. When you can attack from different personnel groupings, and it forces defense to have to play the entire field. They can't just focus in on one guy or one thing that you're doing. So I think we have a good balance, and I think that's going to be important in this game.
Clay Hall, WSYX.
How big a tone setter could this be for you to get to this checkpoint 4-0, as you say, to win this game on the road? And maybe the way you kind of manipulated, you said you ratcheted up the intensity. Can you do it again 2 weeks in a row?
Oh yeah. That's what we don't have a choice. That's what we have to do. This is again top 10 game on the road, and this is why these are the kind of games why you come to Ohio State. This is an exciting series because it's not something that happens very often. Ohio State, Notre Dame, 2 of the bigger teams in the Midwest getting together for a home and home. Last year's atmosphere was electric. It'll be the same way on Saturday night. So our guys are really fired up for this.
Fourth row right, Cameron Teague Robinson, The Athletic.
Brian, as a play caller, when you're playing a defense that has a corner that's playing with as much confidence as that's playing with right now, how do you go about game playing with a guy like that that's going to be on one side of it?
You always have to know where he is. You have to be aware of that, and you have to be smart about what you're doing and how you're doing it. I think that's probably the biggest thing is when you're dealing with a great corner, you need to know where he is. And not that you're going to change your game plan, but you need to know, is it right, left, is it field boundary, those type of things, so that your quarterback has an idea of the matchups that he's dealing with. And the good news for us is we have multiple really good players back there. So that's the same thing on offense. When you're getting to games like this, oftentimes it can come down to the matchups, and you want to have enough depth and enough playmakers on both sides of the ball that when it comes to your star, your next guy, your third guy, your fourth guy, those are all matchups that you have that are in your favor, and that can happen in games like this.
Far left, Joe Nugent, WCMH.
It's a rare trip up to South Bend. Do you think you'll be able to take a moment, even though it is such a big game, to sort of soak in where you are and enjoy it for a second?
Probably not, but that's the game. Been there a few times when I was at Boston College. There's a lot of respect for the history of the program and what they've done. Grew up watching Notre Dame, and wonderful program, great tradition, and they do a great job. But yeah, I mean, these are great moments. This is the highest level of college football, and all eyes will be on this game, and that's the way we love it.
Fourth row middle, Tony Girdman, Buckeye Huddle.
Ryan, what were you most pleased with leaving the game, leaving the field last week, offense or defense, knowing what you're dealing with this weekend?
Just the energy and the passion and the intensity that we played the game with. Didn't even remember exactly what the score was, but I remember how some guys played in that game, and just the overall intensity was there, and the challenge was there. So that's got to lead into this week, and that was what we tried to get done, and so now it's got to mean something here on Tuesday. I mean, we got to take the next step, got to continue to ratchet it up, because this is a bigger challenge.
Front row middle, Dave Biddle, 24/7 Sports.
Ryan, I want to ask about James Laurinaitis. Just what impact has he had on the defense overall, and especially this week? How much can he help with him having been there last year?
Yeah, I mean, not as much as you'd like to think, but he's done an unbelievable job since he's been here. He's helped out a ton. Being a graduate assistant, he's an accountable coach. Knows what it's like to walk in the shoes of an Ohio State football player, and he's played in the NFL, and he's got great experience that he can share with our guys, and our linebackers really enjoy that. So he's been a great addition to the staff.
Second row right, Bill Landis, the podcast, Rivals.
Right. How would you evaluate, I guess, Kyle's decision-making and processing? I was assuming you're giving him more and more each week. How has he kind of handled, I guess, putting more on his plate every week?
Yeah, I think he's growing each week. I think you saw that. And, not that everything's perfect. Nothing is. And I think this week will be a big challenge to see where we're at. But it's been a gradual build-up for our whole team and, for him to this point. And so now it's time to go play and see what we got. But we got to do a great job. Again, I keep saying it, these next couple of days to really prepare. I think I've told you before, I get more worked up for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday than I do for the game. We got to really be on point today and have a great practice.
Second row middle, Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
You brought up the CJ Oregon game a couple of times when we talked to you about the 54 pounds is just putting way too much on CJ's plate, and whether it's how you game plan, how you call plays, whether it's production of other position groups, the defense. Are you more confident that that won't be the case on Saturday with having to put too much on Kyle's plate this early on in his career as a starter? And what does that look like in making sure that doesn't happen?
Yeah, I mean, I think Kyle's, he has to go play the game, and we have to do whatever we can to win the game. That's the bottom line. Whatever that looks like, we're always looking for balance. We want balance. There's certain times where, like last year, we ran the ball a ton down the stretch, and we're good with making 5 or 6 yards a carry. But then there's also times where you got to throw it more because of what they're doing and how the game's playing out. So we have to be able to pivot either way, whatever it takes to win the game.
Right behind him, Andy Andrews, 11 Warriors.
Yeah, you talked about, after the Georgia game last year, being more expressive, emotional on the sidelines in certain big games like this. So on Saturday, how do you plan to strike that balance between showing that emotion, providing that intensity to the team, and also staying poised when you need to and being calm?
Yeah, well, I think it's just the overall, team approach. Even last week, you could see guys were, into the game. The sideline was passionate. Guys were. Coach Mick even got a penalty for walking out in the field. But hey, sometimes things got to go down. You know what I mean? That's our mentality as a team. It isn't just the leaders. It isn't just the coaches. It's everybody. And that's the way we're going to be this week.
Front row right, Tim May. On 3, the Tim May Show.
Well, thank you very much. So hope the refereeing crew from that DeSales Reedy game doesn't show up, right? That's a little joke there. Kind of a two-pronged question, but it dovetails. The feeling you talked about after that game at Georgia, against Georgia, and in Indianapolis, about just feeling, hey, just go out and let it all hang out kind of approach. Do you have that confidence in Kyle that you can take that into this game? And then defensively also, have you seen enough to prove to yourself that this defense hasn't taken the strides you wanted?
Yeah, and I think that this is a group that has played in the big stage. They have. I mean, the majority of these guys have done that, and they've seen it. Even though Kyle really hasn't been on that stage, he's seen it. He's been around it. He knows what it looks like, and a lot of the guys coming back from last year's team they've been there before. So that's good going into it. And then I think you saw last week what we're capable of. And so yeah, I mean it's all there, and now it's just time to go do it.
Right next door, Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
Ryan, they have this year Notre Dame a new offensive coordinator, new quarterback, obviously, in Sam Hartman. What stands out to you about this offense that they have this year versus where they were a year ago?
Yeah, very different. Different coach, different quarterback. You can tell, Hartman is a veteran. He's been around. He's played a lot of football, accurate, very intelligent. A lot of good attributes for a quarterback. He's very good. Won a lot of games at Wake Forest, and obviously he's 4-0 now. Efficient. And I think they're doing a really good job with him. They're running the ball. They're running the ball out of multiple personnel groupings and efficient. I think just a different style of quarterback than when they had, Buckner last year. Just that was more of a quarterback run, spread run game. This is a little bit more pro style.
Hartman seems willing to certainly take shots downfield and get 2 on Saturday. We're over like 70 yards, and he's taking deep shots throughout the year. What stands out about the way he can do that, and what's the particular challenge with that?
Well, I think anytime you deal with a pro style run game, you're dealing with run and play action, and I think they want to establish the run. It's clear, you can tell that. I think Estime is running really well. He's running hard, and then once that happens, it opens up things down the field, and so that kind of goes hand in hand, and they're doing a good job of that. They have a good plan and put it in place, and so that's a good challenge for our defense. I had a real long conversation about it all today, and we got to be able to rise to the challenge, understand exactly what you're talking about, because we got to be aggressive, but we also have to make sure that we're running to the ball and giving great effort and avoiding big plays, all those types of things.
Third row, Dan Hope, 11 Warriors.
Ryan, what's the biggest difference you've seen in Tyleek Williams this year that's allowed him to make a more consistent impact?
Well, it was great to see him play 50 plays in this game. I thought there was actually times where he got better as the game went on. He's got power. He's got strength at the point of attack. He's very athletic, and he missed a little bit of time with a little bit of a tweaked injury at the beginning of preseason. And I think now he's finally got his feet back underneath him. I think he's doing a better job with his hands. He's powerful. He's athletic. And so now it's time for him to go play his best football in this game, along with the rest of the defensive line. It's a big challenge. They do have a good offensive line that's well documented. So. Again, our guys have to have a great week of preparation.
Far left, Whitney Harding, WCMH.
Ryan, you talked about just the special matchup as far as these programs and the history. It's also a special matchup because of so many crossover. I mean, Laurinaitis, they've already asked about him. There's a guy in the back of the room over there. Who knows? Devontae's there. Lorenzo's now here. How neat is that there's these programs so much crossover?
Yeah, I think maybe just because of the location of where we are and just now that Marcus is there and being a former Buckeye, there's guys from Ohio in the program and vice versa. So we're not in the same conference, but now that we're playing against each other, I guess you recognize those things. But a lot of respect for that program, what they do. They do things the right way, and a lot of good coaches there and good players.
Front row, Austin Ward, Rivals, a podcast.
Did Mick have dawn patrol or anything for that penalty?
No, but he did run like we run on Sundays. You have to run for a penalty. He did do his penance for that. Yeah.
When you prepare, break down film, game plan for Notre Dame, how much in your mind, how much stock percentage attention would you put on the way they played you last year versus the 4 games that you have to look at now?
You take everything into consideration, and you watch everything, and you try to do the best you can to project out what you're going to see. Some of it is based on the personnel they have this year. Some of it is based on schematics, things that they've seen this year, things that we have adapted on both sides of the ball. So, different on defense because, the defensive staff is pretty much intact. On offense, different coordinator, different quarterback. So, but they're a very veteran defense. They have a bunch of seniors on that team, a lot of guys who have played a lot of football, so they know what they're trying to get done, and they force you to move the ball down the field. They don't give you a lot of big plays, and they're very well coached.
Second row left, Nathan Baird, Cleveland sportscleveland.com.
You were talking before about just the progression that you were seeing from Kyle and the rest of the offense in practice and how that changed your maybe approach on Saturday a little bit. Does tempo fall into that too? Or are you starting to see things during the week in that regard that allow you to, I guess, be the offense you want to be more on Saturday?
Yeah, I think it plays a big part of the rhythm of the game. There's a give and take to all of this, but when our team is playing with tempo, they find themselves in a rhythm. They find some comfort in that, and so it's a tool that we use. Some games more than others, but you could see on Saturday, how our team got in a rhythm using some tempo. But there was also the big plays, the first play of the drives that were explosives that weren't tempo, that I thought were well executed. But that'll all play into consideration. But it's got to come down to execution.
It wasn't necessarily a reaction on your part to what you talked about before, trying to create more plays. It was just.
Well, I think in last week's game, we knew they were going to throw it a lot and go tempo, so it was less of a concern. Where the last 2 weeks, it was like, how fast can we run plays, because the game was going to be over in less than 3 hours. Last week's game was going to be completely different, so we knew that. This is a matchup game, totally different. You just do everything you can to win the game.
Front row, Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
I know you guys didn't look at it this way because you can't, but a lot of people thought the first 3 games were basically a tune-up for this one. You entered the game with a lot of questions on your team. Compared to how you felt heading into the Indiana game, how good do you feel about where you are ready for this challenge?
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that we went through those 3 games to get to this point, with, some of the new faces that we had, and we did work out some of the issues, and so excited to get on the field and go play this one now. I think that we have a pretty good idea who our team is and where we're at, and so now it's time to go play. But yeah, to answer your question, we are in a much different place than we were week 1.
And last year you did have an experienced quarterback, an experienced offensive line. You still only scored 21 points against Notre Dame. What was it that they did or you didn't do, and how much has that shaped your preparation for this game?
Again, I think in matchup games, it really doesn't matter the score as long as you win. I think I get it when you're playing, Western Kentucky, it's a little bit of an eye test there and all that. But in that game, I thought we controlled the ball, we ran the ball, and the time of possession was really important there, and we won the game. I think that's in that game. That was the right thing to do. Now you just never know what's going to come in this game, how it's going to shake out, what the back and forth is going to be, and the ultimate goal is to win the game. That's it. And that's what we'll do in this one. But yeah, I think looking back on that game, there was some things we did well, some things that we could have really done much better. But it was the first game of the year, and weren't clean on some things, but there were some things that we did do well.
Right behind him, Doug Lane-Reese, Kings of Columbus, and the podcast.
Ryan, last year Tyler Buckner's making his first start. CJ's back as a year 2 starter. Now Sam Hartman's been around forever. This is still pretty new for Kyle. In general, how much do you think quarterback experience matters in equal talent games on a big time stage like this? Is it a factor?
Yeah, I think it's a factor. Yeah. How much one? I think Kyle's been around. He hasn't played a whole bunch of football, but he has been around. He's seen it, so he's older and more mature than maybe a freshman who's coming in the same situation. But no, I think experience does play a part of it. It's not the number one thing overall. There's a lot of other things that come with it, but I do think it's significant.
And you have to play the games whenever you play them. Last year it's week 1.
Right.
Now you've played 3, they've played 4. It feels like you just feel like more about your team,
right.
Maybe more about the opponent when a big time game like this is a little bit later in the schedule.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah. They've played 4, we've played 3, so it is a different approach than it would be for game 1. Yep.
Fourth row, Andy Backstrom, Letterman Row.
Right, I know you said this game's decided at the line of scrimmage, but that Notre Dame back end is playing among the best in the country right now. What stands out about that group to you?
Again, some guys who played a bunch of football. I think both corners are playing well. The safeties are playing well. I think the linebackers are excellent. They've seen a lot of football, played a lot of football. They're good players. There's some NFL players on that defense. They're well coached. Again, they don't give you a lot of freebies, not a lot of missed assignments. They tackle well. They're physical. So it's exactly what we expected. So we got to go play well.
Far right, Adam King, WBNS.
I know you named Kyle the starter to kind of gained confidence on the field, but off the field, I know it's just been a week. Have you seen the locker room? Have you seen Kyle change and kind of grow now that he is the guy?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, I think you've seen a little bit of a different approach. He had his best week of practice last week. Whether that was a coincidence or not, I'm not sure. But we'll see going into this week. But I do. I thought he graded out really well. On Saturday, and hopefully he can play his best football here this week. But I think that there was a little pep in his step for sure.
Right next door, Andrew Gillis, Cleveland.com.
Building off of Andy's question, with Benjamin Morrison for Notre Dame, what stands out to you when you watch him? And are you guys game planning as if he's going to follow Marv around on either side of the field?
No. We're gonna just do what we do. But at the same time, he's a very good corner, good cover skills, competitive, good change of direction, runs well. He's very talented.
Third row right, Dylan Davis, Delaware Gazette.
Trevion's looked really sharp this season. I don't think that's a secret. Is he starting to maybe kind of elevate himself to be that guy you can't take off the field? And I guess what is the benefit of having that guy going into a game like this that you can ride?
Yeah, when we need him to play great, his approach has been excellent. His competitiveness every day has been great. I think he's running hard. He's a weapon in a lot of areas, and yeah, that can be a difference maker for us. I thought he ran hard last year's game. He and Mayan both. So again, it's like anybody else. They got to play their best football, but you're seeing, a guy run downhill and make big plays, and he's certainly a threat once he gets in the open field.
Is Mayan the third guy? Is Chip taking that second spot, really? I know you're
trying to really put any kind of depth on that part of it. We'll still kind of roll the guys, but all are going to play.
Thank you, Coach. We're going to wrap it up with a couple of quickies from Tim May on 3.
Yeah. Do you like that combination you saw? You're seeing now though with Travion and Trainum. And Trainum, has he surprised you a little bit the way he's stepped up? Came back to be a linebacker. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know he hasn't surprised me because of his work ethic in the off season. He's got real speed. He's got power. He's got 1-2. He's got a really good leader, great attitude, tough. And so this was kind of what I thought we would see.
And with Hartman, in a nutshell, you can see he's in his 6th year, right? How does it show up?
Just poise, decision making, overall command of the game, and then execution.
Coach,
Yeah.
thank you very much.
All right, guys. Yep.
So, like always, appreciate you guys coming out and covering Penn State football. We appreciate it. This will be our 17th, whiteout, which is really cool. First one it was in 2007 against Notre Dame. We need the fans to arrive early and be loud and have a full stadium, before kickoff. Very similar to what we did at West Virginia. Do you not agree with that? Your face is.
I was thinking, I think it's the 15th. There was a student whiteout, I think Purdue. It doesn't matter. I was just because I'm writing it. I just want to.
So I got bad information, is what you're saying. No. Yeah. It's going to be interesting. So the loser between you and Kincaid's got 5 push-ups.
Yeah, that press release is wrong.
And who gave the press release out?
Me.
Oh. So you got 5 push-ups either way right now. The question is it 5 or 10? We're welcoming CBS to Beaver Stadium for the first time since 1990. Trace McSorley and Grant Haley are honorary captains. They're actually in the weight room right now getting a workout in. As you guys know, it's great to see them. They're beloved. They're beloved in Penn State history, in my opinion. I know they are in our building. You talk about the Illinois game and just some kind of thoughts on that game and some statistics that we talk about every week. We won the turnover battle, which was really the story of the game. We did not win the explosive play battle. We won the third down battle. We did not win the third down battle. The sack battle, we did win. Drive start battle, we won. And the penalty battle, we did not win. Players of the game, on offense, Hunter Norzad. On defense, we gave it really to all the turnover guys. Dom DeLuca caused the fumble, Kobe King, Abdul Carter, Daquan Hardy, Johnny Dixon, and Cam Miller. Special teams was Malik McLean, who's really done a nice job and has been impressive on special teams. Is making an impact and making a difference there, which is huge for us. And then D squad players of the week on offense, Dom Ruley and Jake Spencer. On defense, Colin Dinkins and Winston Yates. And then on special teams, Ethan Black. Just some overall notes from the game. Positives: went on the road and found a way to get a win, a Big Ten win on the road. Again, we're experts at that. 5 turnovers on defense, 4 interceptions, and a fumble recovery. Everybody's talking about that, and that is deservedly so, but also the fact that we had 0 turnovers on offense is just as important. I think the fact that we're playing a lot of guys, I think, has been very important for us. Getting a lot of guys in games. We had 62 guys play in that game. I thought we did a much better job compared to earlier in the season of handling our business on offense and defense from a game management standpoint. So having all 3 timeouts at the end of the first half was huge. We were able to use 2 timeouts on defense to get the ball back for our offense, and had a timeout available and went down and scored a field goal right before the half, which was big. Third quarter shutout, not only a third quarter shutout in that game, but we have not given up a point this year in the third quarter. Audrey? Just checking my facts. And then I thought really good complementary football, offense, defense, and special teams. Areas for growth, we got to eliminate the penalties. I don't really like any penalties, but specifically the ones that we focus on the most are the pre-snap penalties, which to me are focus penalties, and then the post-snap penalties that are discipline penalties. There's going to be penalties that happen during a play. I don't really like any of them, but you can live with them. The pre-snap focus and the post-snap discipline ones we got to eliminate. Starting fast, something that we did really well the previous games. We got to get back to that. Points off turnovers was good, but I think we can be better there. We need to score more touchdowns, especially with the field position that we got. And then obviously we got to be more explosive. So kind of moving on to Iowa. Obviously a ton of respect for the University of Iowa, their football program, the history and traditions there. Coach Ferentz has been there forever and done a phenomenal job. 34th year at Iowa, 25th as the head coach, which is very, very unusual in today's college football. So it's cool to see. The offensive coordinator, Brian Ferentz, in his 7th year as the offensive coordinator, they're a multiple pro-style system. Multiple personnel groups, multiple formations, motions, and shifts. Guys that we've been impressed with, the running back number 4, LaShawn Williams, the running back number 9, Jazion Patterson, and then the guy that we're familiar with, the tight end number 83, Eric All. Defensively, Phil Parker, again, another guy who's been doing it forever, and the level of consistency is impressive, is really impressive. His 12th year as the defensive coordinator, 25th year at Iowa overall. They are a base defense. They do what they do, and they do it extremely well, and have been doing it a long time. There's obviously some subtle changes, but whether it is 2023 or whether it's 2014, you put the tape on, and it's Iowa playing Iowa defense the way they play it, and again at a high level and been impressive. Guys that we're impressed with is Cooper DeJean. I really am impressed by this young man. not only how he plays on defense, but also the impact that he makes on special teams as a returner, as a gunner, or bullet, depending on how you term it. He's an impressive football player. Number 13, Joe Evans, the defensive end. The defensive tackle, number 85, Logan Lee. Linebacker, number 34, Jay Higgins. And then safety, number 30, Quentin Schulte. Those guys are playing at a really, really high level. And then you talk about special teams. Been impressed with their punter, Torrey Taylor, their kick returner, number 21, Caden Weegan, and then their punt returner, again, like we've talked about, number 3, Cooper DeJean. So looking forward to the opportunity to play the University of Iowa. Looking forward to practice today as well. And, should be another great game between, two really well-respected historical Big Ten programs. So open up to questions.
All right, we'll start with Johnny McGonigal, and then Rich, you're on deck.
Has anybody fact-checked yet? Do we have the data?
2004 was all student whiteout?
Yeah, we're not counting that. You keep saying that. Yeah, you keep saying, like the full stadium whiteout. 15 this Saturday. And I got to do 5 because I got to own it because I should have fact-checked it. So everybody's held accountable around here. Question, sorry, guys.
All good. Hey, James, with Drew starting his first whiteout, how much do you think last year's experience of him playing a couple drives against Minnesota and then even the West Virginia game to open the season, how much do you think that might help him handle some of the pressure that could come along, with the environment and the atmosphere that the whiteouts normally present?
Yeah, I think we're really done with the whole first time stuff, first stripe out, first, helmet stripe, first, we're done talking about that stuff. He had a first start, we're past that. He had a first road start, we're past that. We're, first home game, we're past that. Now he is no longer kind of going through the first. We are very appreciative of having one of the best environments in all of sports. And we're very appreciative of the whiteout and what it means for this community and the state and really for college football. I want our players and our fans to take 30 seconds, in the beginning and take it all in. But then after that, it's about execution. So whether it's an orange out, a black out, a white out, at the end of the day, it's going to come down to football and executing plays and playing well. So, I understand your question, but we're past that. We're past the first, for Drew, and we're now kind of taking the next step in terms of let's go out and consistently play well as a team.
We'll go to Rich Scarcella, and then Mark, you're on deck.
Good afternoon, James. How are you?
Hey, Rich. Good, man. How are you?
Good. You have talked a lot about explosive plays. You mentioned in your opening remarks that you need to have more. 2 runs of 20-plus yards so far in 3 games. What do you have to do to increase the number of explosive plays? And what do you have to do to get more than the 2 runs of 20-plus yards that you've had?
Yeah, I think a couple things. I think most importantly, we got to consistently show people that we can throw the ball over their heads, because right now there's no doubt about it. Although I think Drew has shown what he's able to do and what he's capable of, I still think people are going to say to themselves, we can't allow Katron and Nick to beat us. I think that's the approach you got to take based on just more evidence of that. So based on that, people are game planning and saying, what do we have to do in every formation and in every personnel group to have the numbers to give us the advantage? And then once we prove on a consistent basis that if you're going to do that, that we can take advantage of it by throwing for a high percentage, by making people miss and creating explosives on the perimeter. And then obviously being able to also, like I said in the beginning, throw it over their heads, then now people are really having to make a choice because there's enough evidence of both that they're still going to have to make a choice, of how they're going to defend us. But right now, I think it's been very obvious that over the first 3 weeks that people are saying, their defensive game plan is going to be based on stopping our running game. And that is a combination of wide receivers, quarterbacks, tight ends, O-line protection, running backs protection. That's all of it, so that we can show that we can consistently beat you in the passing game and cause real significant problems for you if you choose to play that way. So, to me, that's an exciting thing. That's an opportunity for us in the passing game. We've shown signs of it. We got to do it more consistently.
Let's go to Mark Wogenrich, and then Frank, you're on deck.
Hey, James. Thanks for doing this again today.
Thank you.
Following up on Rich's question, how has Nick Singleton then responded to just having fewer opportunities for those explosive plays, and how do you assess his first 3 weeks?
Yeah, I think those guys have been great. I mean, I also think in the Big Ten, you look at statistically, we play good defense around here. So there's going to be games where we got to grind it out. I mean, you guys know Iowa. This is probably going to be another one of those games where we're going to have to grind it out. It's going to be a 4-quarter game. You look at their defensive coordinator and what he's been able to do historically, and then the style of how they play on offense. It's going to be one of those Big Ten grinded out games. So for me, I'm not really overly concerned with that. We got to find ways to win. And there's going to be weeks where we're super explosive based on the opportunities that the defense gives us and the plays that we make. And there's going to be other weeks where we got to grind it out and do it in a more old-fashioned sense, which I know everybody loves that old-fashioned ball. We may put some fullbacks out there. I got a reaction in the back of the room. I think that's one of the things that I've been impressed with is the maturity of this team and understanding that's how football works, major college football. I think a perfect example is not just the running backs, but the tight ends. We had that 1 week where they didn't get many touches, and I didn't hear a word out of the tight ends. They know if we do our jobs that those opportunities will come. And there's going to be some weeks where they have 20 catches, and there's going to be some weeks where the running backs have 30 carries. It really just depends on the week and how the game plays out. So with team success comes individual recognition. I think they're in the meetings as well. They see how people are trying to defend us. They go against a really good defense, our defensive practice every single day. So I think our coaches and our players understand that. Do our coaches want more? Do the players want more? Yeah. There's no doubt about it, but I think most importantly is, are we finding ways to win? And there's going to be a ton of different ways that we're going to have to do that throughout the season.
Let's go to Frank Bodani, and Mike Gross, you're on deck.
Hey, good afternoon, James.
Hey, Frank.
How are you?
Good.
I wanted to ask you about your pass rush.
Are you a gel or a moose guy?
That would be gel.
Nice.
Moose was 1980s, I think.
Oh yeah, as you can tell, I have no reference on the age, the dates of when things were relevant for hair product.
No use for either, right?
None.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, sorry.
Awesome. Pass rush. your top 3 edge rushers, Chop, Deny, Adisa, I think they only have a half a sack between them. Are those guys doing what you expect, or the numbers a little misleading? What's the deal from your perspective on that so far?
Yeah, I think we're playing really good team defense. And, typically what happens is the 5 turnovers, most of them are a result of quarterbacks getting the ball out of your hands quicker. Typically, you're going to have one or the other. You're going to have sacks or turnovers. Again, no different than the questions about the running game and things like that. I think our defense understands and respects, and I know our DBs respect the fact that most of those turnovers came as a result of pressuring the quarterback. So, again, for us, it's about what do we have to do to win games. And sometimes that's going to equate to gaudy statistics at one position or another. We'll come in another week and you guys are saying, well, we had 6 sacks, but we didn't have any interceptions. Why not? Again, these things usually are complementary pieces, if that makes sense. So, do we want a perfect game where we have it all at the end? Yes. But again, I think our coaches and our defense do a good job of talking about and explaining and respecting what it takes to win. And the stats are usually used to reinforce what it takes to win or areas that we need to improve. It's not about the stats as an end-all, be-all. And I think the other things that our guys have understood that we've spent a lot of time talking about, as well as had some NFL scouts talk about. True football people, the stats are important, but they're watching how you play the game and are you doing your job? How many times does the defensive end get a tackle for a loss because the D tackle spiked and got penetration in the B gap? The D tackle may get no credit in the stat form, but everybody knows that D tackle created the tackle for a loss for the other D tackle or for the defensive end. So for us, it's studying football and understanding how did you grade out and how well did you play. And some weeks that's going to equate to a ton of stats. Some weeks that's not. Sometimes you're going to get a sack and you didn't necessarily do your job. You spiked into the B gap and you're supposed to be into the C gap. Is that a good play? It's a good play when you make the sack. It's not a good play when the ball finds the C gap, the gap you're supposed to be in. We go for it on 4th down. Is that a good decision? If we pick up the 4th down, it's a good decision. If we don't, it's a bad decision. So I think it really matters how are you looking at the game and how are you viewing the game? And that's where I think you have to be careful, because whether it's PFF or whether it's somebody grading your tape, that's hard to do if you don't know exactly what's being asked. It's amazing how many times we'll do that when we're breaking film down. You're like, wow, this is an unbelievable blitz they're running right here. They ran 2 guys through the B gap, and that's a challenge for us because that goes against rules. Well, is it a great scheme they're running, or did they make a mistake? And they benefited from the mistake. So it's just a fine line for us. And for us, we want to play good, sound, clean football. And if the stats come with that, great. If not, again, back to the statement I made earlier, with team success comes individual recognition.
Let's go to Mike Gross.
Hi, James. How are you?
Hey, Mike. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. This is a little off script, but it's something that I'm genuinely curious about your reaction to.
Good. I'm excited about it.
the best football player in the world right now, at least according to me and according to a lot of people, is a guy that you coached. And I wonder what how you think and how you feel about what Micah has become, not only as a player, but just as a competitor and just an unbelievably relentless force in the game.
Yeah, the first thing it does, it makes me think about, I wish we had him for that third year rather than canceling the football season. But I'm proud of him. I'm really proud of him. For a lot of different reasons. And football is one of them, but it's a small one. He came and spoke to the team 2 weeks ago, I think, and just did a phenomenal job and talked about the game, but talked specifically about Penn State and this community. He sent me and Brent Pry just kind of out of nowhere the other day a beautiful, heartfelt, thoughtful message. No one talks about, like, I think there was a stat that went out the other day about, I think he's in the top 10 all-time sacks for the Dallas Cowboys, in year 2 or whatever it is, But no one he gets very little credit for graduating from Penn State in 3 years. I see on social media how frugal he is. I love that. I used to show the guys videos of Ocho Cinco. One of the most brilliant things ever is Ocho Cinco wore fake jewelry the entire time he was in the NFL. Why? Because when you're in the NFL and you wear fake jewelry, everybody assumes it's real, and he's not wasting money on things that don't really matter. I worry about that a little bit in today's day and age. I'm a supporter of NIL, very much so. But I also worry that it sets up unrealistic expectations of how hard it is to earn a dollar. And I think a lot of times when you're the head football coach and you talk about things like that, people don't want to hear it from me and people in my position, but I worry about that. I hear stories about our guys wasting money on haircuts or turning down NIL opportunities that they don't think pay enough. I worry about it. I worry about unrealistic expectations of how hard it is to earn a dollar in our country and in our world, and I want our guys to appreciate that. And I think Micah is a great example, because I think part of our responsibility as college football coaches that I take very serious is that when our guys leave here, that they're equipped and ready to take care of themselves and their families for the next 40 years. And I think NIL can be a positive in teaching them lessons about how to manage their money. And I think Micah is a great example of that. He's got more money than most people will ever dream of, but he's complaining about how much a haircut costs on social media, So I'm super proud of him. I'm super proud of the young man that we recruited really from 9th grade that took us on a roller coaster ride during his recruiting process. We had some tough love when he was here. And he looks back at all this stuff with such appreciation now. He's always been super thoughtful. I loved how he embraced the whole Penn State experience. You would not find a bigger supporter of our wrestling program. Because he loved how competitive they were and what Cale has built here. He worked out with those guys. I don't know if you guys know this. He's passionate bowler, believes that he can be a professional bowler. Loves to play chess. I'm proud of him. He's growing up to be a really well-rounded individual, and although he's having a ridiculous amount of success when it comes to football, I think that's going to be just a small part of Micah's story, and I'm very proud of him.
We'll now go to the room. Please raise your.
Good afternoon, everybody. Glad everybody's here. We have a really another big game here, homecoming coming on Saturday. We're looking forward to it with a good team in Maryland coming into town. Looking forward to that. They have another excellent quarterback coming in here. He moves around in the pocket a lot, and it's going to be a challenge for us. We've been playing this guy now for 3 years. We know we need to do better as a coaching staff and as a team, and we've been addressing that throughout this week, and feel like we'll be able to go out and play a much better brand of football on Saturday. Our players and coaches have really been putting a lot of great work this week, just talking things through and getting things worked out to where we can go out and execute. The word I've been using this week, focused on, is discipline. If we're disciplined, we're going to give ourselves a chance to play a much better ball game on Saturday. Less penalties and substitution errors and things like that. We can't have those things, and we talked about that a lot. And so discipline is the key.
Hey, Harlon, I was wondering how you, amid all this with Mel being, the notice to fire him, how do you rally the players and staff and all that amid this turmoil? And I guess, did your experience at Florida State in a somewhat similar situation help you to go through this process?
Well, that's a good question. It's funny you bring that up, Florida State, but I am actually still meeting with the players. Some players, I'm in the 80s now, individually, so met with some guys yesterday who had a different experience from last week's guys that I met with, because now we got a game experience and then, the other things that are going on. But the person that actually told me, one of the good ideas is to meet with all the guys, is my guy at Florida State that became the interim coach, Odell Higgins, and he's the one that actually said, man, I would suggest that you meet with all those players because it really helped me. He said the staff as well. So and it ended up being a really good idea by him, because you get a lot of insight from the players, one-on-one. They feel like they can share with you, and so it's been really good.
How you doing? To say the situation you're in, the program is in, to say it's unique is an understatement. But I'm just curious to know, what can you share with us about being a head coach that no one would know, you would not have known until you got the head coaching position?
Say that again. Rephrase that question.
Yeah. What is it that you can tell us about being a head coach that nobody would know, no one would understand until you're actually in that position?
I got you. Coming to see you guys every weekend. No, everybody knows that. Everybody knows that. But there are things that you just don't anticipate. Like a position coach is just totally different. Obviously, you don't have to do these things like this and different, and then just the outside peripheral things that you do with the program, how you're going to run the team meeting, what you're going to do in the team meeting, how you're going to set that up and talk to the guys about it, or the whole entire team about what you have to say, the message you're trying to get across, things like that. So you just have a different mindset as opposed to being a position coach. I don't know if that truly answered your question, but a little bit. Mm-hmm.
Looking back at Saturday's game, when you go over the film of a game like that where both sides of the ball had their issues, I guess, what did you take from that? Is it a moment where you kind of dig in on that film, throw it out, and how do the guys mentally put that aside as one game when you gave up 700 plus yards, when you didn't move the ball like you wanted to?
We attack the details. So just an example, and I'll give examples in all areas. So if you talk offensively, a receiver supposed to run the route at 14 yards, he runs it at 12. You did it all week at 14. Do it at 14. Don't get in the game. And you know what I mean? A defensive back plays a ball one way in practice, a deep ball, but in the game, he played it totally different, and we knew that was coming. You knew that was something that was going to happen. You get a guy on the punt team, don't take the proper steps, and you did it all week in practice. So we're focused on the details, the discipline of everything right now. And how do we get that accomplished in the game when the crowd is hollering 75,000? We had a great crowd out there on Saturday. You know, how can you remain focused and disciplined to just do your job, just like you did in practice? You know, so that's the focus. That's what we're trying to get done.
The mental aspect of trying to just shove that away.
Yeah, so we had to address the elephant in the room. We definitely addressed that. We got our butt kicked on Saturday. Okay, bam. Now, how do we improve from that and get better from that? It was one game. Coach Hazelton did a really good job with the defense. A unit meeting on yesterday. He had the GAs pull up some scores of NFL games over the last several years where a team that actually won the Super Bowl or played in the Super Bowl gave up 41, the same number, right? Gave up 41 points throughout the regular season one game, came back the next week and got it right, and then went through the rest of the season, won the Super Bowl. He showed multiple examples of it. So I think that helped the guys as well, seeing that, like, wow, okay. We're always talking about being a professional. All these guys want to play in the NFL. You got to be a professional about it. Okay, understand we got our butts kicked. How do we learn from it, get better from it, and improve from it? And then that's the focus now. Just the discipline of everything, of doing everything the right way.
Hey, Harlon, back here on your right in the back row, Jennifer Hammond from Fox 2 in Detroit.
Okay.
Haven't been here yet, so nice to see you. I understand that, sounds like you're saying, I mean, for most coaches, a loss can really recenter a team. How challenging is it, given all of the things that are going on the outside? And what is your message maybe to, I guess, Spartan faithful, to the team, to everyone that it's football still and things are going in the right direction?
My message would be, first of all, we're 2-1. We have a winning record right now. We're at the beginning of the Big Ten season. We had a great representation last week of Spartan Nation here on the walk, all the way to this, to the game, to the stadium itself. I mean, it was awesome. The energy, everything. And I just hope that everybody come back this week with that same energy, that same passion, and we will bring it as much. We will bring it ourselves as a team, even more so. We have to bring more passion up from our end, and like I said, the discipline thing. So we want to bring the discipline and the passion and the energy, just like the fans. Let's do it all together. Let's do it all together. Work together, and let's cheer these young men on. We love Spartan Nation, and we know that we want to go out and give them what they want to see, and that's a hard-working team playing the right way, tough, physical, aggressive football. And that's what we know Michigan State football to be. So really would like everybody to come back out with that same energy. We're going to have the energy, and let's go beat Maryland.
One little follow-up, if I may, to that. To what extent do you feel like over the last 9 days you've had to also wear the hat of maybe like psychologist and mentor and maybe big brother to some of these kids and students on the team as much as football coach, and how do you balance that?
That's what I've been doing as a coach since I've been a coach. That's part of being a coach. You understand that it's not just about being out on the field. It's about, mentoring them through different things in life, different things that can come their way. Coach, what you think about this? What you think about that? And that's the wisdom that we gather as older adults that we can give back to the young men. So that's part of it in my mind. Again, I said this before. I know my purpose. My purpose is to help young men become men, and so that's all a part of it. It's just on a grander scale with a lot more going on. But gotta do what you have to do.
H, when you broke down the tape from Saturday, were there any position groups that escaped a failing grade, and how would you assess the performance of a first-game head coach?
Well, first of all, I didn't escape the failing grade, so that starts with me, right? And then everybody else. I mean, I will say this, Jack. There were some guys. There were some things you like. Everything wasn't terrible. You saw some hope and some light at the tunnel, into the tunnel. It wasn't consistent enough. If you need all 11 to execute, and I always say this: all 11 execute. You win that down. All right, you win that series, you win that quarter, you win that half, you win the game. If all 11 execute, you get all 11 that's on the field to execute, which is hard to do. 11 people doing the right thing at the right time at the same time. And so that's where the focus is. We had some guys, we may have 10 of 11 do right. we had 9 of 11. So it wasn't all this terrible. It was some things to build upon. We just weren't consistent in our all 11 executing.
One more thing, as a longtime DB's coach, how would you compare Talia Tungavaloa with Michael Penix Jr.?
Talia, man, this dude is all over the place. He's running all over the place, you know. He's different in that manner that he'll move out in the pocket a lot. He'll throw the ball from anywhere. Whereas I think Penix was more of a pocket guy, although we've known him to be a runner years ago at Indiana and all that kind of stuff. But he's trying to stay in the pocket a little bit longer and throw from the pocket, where Talia, he wants to be in the pocket, all of them do, but he don't mind getting out, running around, and still throwing it. And so he's going to be a challenge just trying to capture him and get him on the ground. That's the challenge.
Hey, Harlon, you mentioned last, I think it was Saturday night, the idea of wanting to bring more normalcy to the week. And can you tell me, like, how you do that? And then also, is there also the realization that nothing is going to be quite normal, and so you're going to have to navigate it without it being so?
No doubt. So last week, we like you said, we didn't change a whole lot of things because that's what they knew. You know, you already had the news, and so we tried to just keep it as, you know, the times, the meeting times, the practice times, the things we did in practice, all that was pretty much the same. And so they didn't feel like, oh, wow, this is a big change. That the changes that we did make were slight things that we did, and they all seemed to like those slight changes. But nothing that was so big that they were thrown off course for what we need to get done. And this week, kind of the same, Graham. We kept it fairly normal to what we've done in the past, with a few changes here and there, and they all like it. The main thing is the time. As long as they know the time is the same, they can be on time where they need to be, we're good. And then the practices and the coaches are the same, you know, as far as, you know, how we coach them and all that kind of stuff.
How about for you personally? Like, what have you, like you talked about meeting with most of the guys last week, you still have something, like how has this week been different than last week, I guess, for you?
Great question. So I haven't been meeting, like last Monday, I met with 27 dudes, man. Yesterday it was like 11 or 12. Big difference, big difference. I also jumped on the Maryland film on Sunday. I'm watching Maryland. Other than that, you know, we got the film graded on Saturday night. That's how I do it after the game, no matter what time the game ends, watch the film. And so Sunday I had a chance to really focus on Maryland and watch them. And beyond what I normally watch was their offense. Now I'm watching offense, defense, and special teams. So I'm watching the entire group, and that was my focus on Sunday. So I already feel more prepared than I did last week for Washington, because I didn't really get a chance to watch them like I wanted to watch them, the entire group.
One more thing. In hindsight, the CMU Richmond, given their limited passing games, going into Michael Penix and those receivers and that coordinator, was that in some ways the worst possible preparation for what you guys then faced? And then is this in some ways the best preparation you could have faced for Maryland dealing with what you did last week?
Exactly. Yes, what you said, I totally agree with what you just said. You know, I'm not going to say it's total worst, because you got to respect everybody, Richmond and Central, but they're different than Washington. We all know that. And so, you know, we might have got a little, you know, I ain't going to say complacent. That's not the word, because we knew what Washington was. We played them last year. So it's not like we were surprised. It's the same guys back. But, you know, the preparation of it and all that, and then how good those guys really are. Because we did have some guys that played in this year's game that didn't play in last year's game. Although we played them and they heard all the stuff about them and everything. But some of those guys didn't even play in the game last year. And so they got a chance to see the real deal. So it does help us for this week.
I covered my first Michigan State game in 1960. So I've seen a lot of Michigan State. I don't ever recall seeing the stadium as empty as it was after halftime. How did you react to that, and what do you think?
Well, we have to play better. We have to play better. We got to make them want to stay. You can't leave. That would make them want to stay. That's Spartan Nation. So that is a goal by playing better football and being a better disciplined team and putting a better product on the field. So hey, they'll come back. Spartan Nation is strong and resilient, and hopefully they'll come back this week and have that same energy at the beginning and all the way to the end this week.
Yeah, as always, thanks for joining us for today. Before we kind of turn the page on last week, I definitely want to shout out our student section. You know, these past 3 home games, we've had the opportunity to be here in the Shell. They've really come out full force, and their energy, you know, our players have fed off the energy that they bring, and we hope, as always, that they continue to show up and show out and make that a great environment for us when we return home in a couple of weeks. But obviously now our focus is on Michigan State. First road test, first opportunity for us as a football family to hit the road together. You know, we made it through our non-conference schedule. We did what was necessary, but we also realized that, you know, the things we did in those 3 games aren't sufficient because we haven't, you know, we still are work in progress and still have some things to get cleaned up, which I know we will. Obviously, when you go on the road to a place like Michigan State, you have to prepare your team. You know, their student section sits right behind your bench. They're loud. They're obnoxious at times, and I can tell you that it's a tough environment to go in and play for the first opportunity for a bunch of the players that are new to our program. We really felt like, again, we did some good things in a non-conference schedule, but it's a whole new ball game when you enter conference play, and it'll be a very challenging game for us on the road against a team coming off of a tough loss, dealing with adversity as a program, and having been a part of some of those teams. As I told our team, what we saw on tape a week ago will not be the team we face on Saturday, because now they'll have a little more time now to kind of galvanize. I would expect that they'll do a tremendous job of coming together. We've seen that here in our program before, when team comes together and they take on that us against the world mentality, and so we expect to get their best on Saturday. As I told our team, you know, championship teams don't wait till they get punched in the mouth to respond. That's something we've kind of done the last couple of weeks, and, you know, as I've said before, you know, I've seen enough proof that we're a different team when it comes to facing adversity, and I'd like to see us get back to our standard of starting fast and finishing strong. So that's our expectation going into Saturday. The captains for this week are Talia Tungavailoa, Sean Greeley, and Bo Braid will serve as our game captains heading up to East Lansing. And with that, I'll open it up to questions.
Good afternoon, Mike.
Hey, Dave.
After the non-conference schedule, you guys lead the Big Ten in total offense as well as third down conversion percentage. What do you, after looking at the tape from the last 3 games, what is the connective tissue with the way that you guys have been executing on offense, and what are you still looking for as far as what you guys can do?
Yeah, that's the irony of it. You know, you can put up numbers and create big plays and still not necessarily execute at a high level, and that's the part where, you know, as a play caller in my past, that when you get your best players the ball, they usually make plays for you. But I can tell you, on offense, it has not been as clean as maybe those stats suggest. You know, getting our guys lined up, you know, has been a chore. And you know, went back, watched the tape. You know, the ball was in the middle of the field a lot this game, this past week, which is not normal, and it affected how we get lined up to get lined up quick. So we've had to get that corrected. But, you know, we've got playmakers on our offensive side of the ball, which allows us to create these explosives. But the offense has not been as clean as myself, Josh, or anybody on the offensive side would like to see us from a execution level. But we are making big plays, and we understand that big plays now probably play as much a role as anything in terms of wins and losses. Teams that generate explosives and minimize them typically win games.
Hey, Mike.
Gene, what's up?
Okay, man. What are some of the steps you can take to come out of the gate cleaner and sharper? And I imagine that's even more imperative on the road, where if you fall behind, it's even more difficult to come back and win.
I mean, it's you know, obviously we always emphasize it. You know, one of the things that, you know, as I went back and evaluated, so the past 2 weeks, and I'll get into I'll bore you guys, but, you know, we track our guys in terms of the analytics of their player loads. And And for the last couple of weeks, because we had 2 straight games, we had a Saturday late game and a Friday early game, we had to cut some things out of practice. And when we cut out of practices, we cut our good on good out. And when you go good on good, that's where you really get the speed of what a game is like. And one of the things that, the last 2 weeks, I've cut practice down where I've removed the good on good, but we continue to do the stuff versus our development team or developmental team. And what happens, the developmental team doesn't always finish. They don't always get off blocks. They kind of go through the motion, and sometimes they become, we call them scout dummies, where they just stand there and it's, I blocked you, and they stop. Well, what happens is, and what I've kind of think is my philosophy is that what's happened to us is that we don't adjust to the speed of it until we get punched in the mouth after the first quarter, and now we understand it. And so what I've done is I've reinstituted the good on good periods in our practice where we'll get the speed of what it looks like or should look like. And then again, we have to make the point of emphasis that the guys that are on that developmental squad to wear those black jerseys, it's important. Their role is to get us ready to play fast. And we've got talented players over there, but they just have to learn how to be a good scout player for us to give us the look that we're going to need. And so I'm hoping getting back to getting the speed of it in practice allows us to not have that adjustment, because we haven't been a team in the past that have started out slow. We've traditionally on offense been a fast start team, and then defensively we've given up some yards, but we've given up some explosive plays off of some of what I call trick type plays, the flea flicker. And you can expect those early in people's scripts against us because we've given up those plays, and once you put it on tape, people will continue to attack. So to me, I think us going back to getting the good on good periods back in our practice hopefully will give us the speed that we need to be able to start fast and not have that adjustment period, I hope. Sean,
hey,
what's
up? Sticking on that, the starts of the game, how much have you kind of hammered home to your team that now that you're into the Big Ten Conference schedule, there really isn't that much, I guess, leeway or room to fall behind, because this is a different animal.
It's not as much about the opponent. Like I always say, it's not the opponent, it's us versus us. And as you can see, the things we need to do to improve our fast start really has nothing to do with our opponent. And so we're out of non-conference play and into conference play, but the standard for how we practice and what we do is going to be more important than the emphasis of conference play, because I don't want us to differentiate between our opponents. Our opponents are faceless and nameless, and it's going to be more what we do, how we get ready, how we prepare, and obviously more importantly, it's our first road trip with over 30 guys that have never traveled with us before, that have never been to this environment. I had a bunch of them raise their hand that have been up to East Lansing, because to prepare our team, I talked about just even the student section, man, right behind our bench, and it's a tight sideline. I mean, they've got some comedians in their student sections, and if you get caught up dealing with them, it affects what's going on the field. And so we've got to prepare them for that environment more than anything.
Hey, Coach. Wanted to ask about Tyrese Chambers. What have you seen from him through the first 3 weeks as far as the receiver position?
Yeah, he's been a little nicked up, but Tyrese is one of those guys that when he gets his opportunities, he usually makes plays for us. Came up with a big third down catch there Saturday. He's been dealing with a lower leg injury that's kind of held him back a little bit, but I think he's finally back full speed, and he's back in the right space mentally where I'm excited to see him back to the old Tyrese where, whenever his number was called in practice and scrimmages, he made plays. And so long season, and we need to get him going.
And then in that receiver room, when you have so many different names and targets and playtime being split around, is there something you guys have to do as a coaching staff to keep everyone kind of happy in that room?
No, it's their job to keep us happy.
Mike, I got two questions about Tarheeb Steele.
Just only two, all right? Because some people ask 6.
With Deontay and Jacorian being drafted, how comforting is it to have someone like Tarheeb back in the secondary? And then what kind of growth have you seen from him this year?
Yeah, Hebe is a guy that, he's almost like, it reminds me when I was at Bama and I had Jerry Jeudy and Ruggs and Smitty kind of was the forgotten guy because the other guys turned pro early. Well, Hebe was a guy that we sent his stuff into the NFL and he had a draftable grade, but I don't think it was where he would have liked to see it. But the people in our program know that he was as much a catalyst, but we've played him in the slot most of his career because of having those other two. And the slot corner position is it's a tough cover because you're going against their best guy and you've got the whole field to cover him. And I think over the last 3 years, he's performed at a really high level for us. And so just as much as getting Jay Sean back here to have Tarheeb come back for his senior year was a huge deal for us. And now what I'm starting to see is the leadership out of him in terms of just taking on the role of developing those younger players that are behind him. And there's no doubt that he came up with some huge plays in the game Saturday. These are plays he's capable of making. As I've said, he's a guy that we could very easily play on offense as a receiver because of the type of ball skills he has and his knack for making plays. And so it was good to see him kind of get started with 2 picks, and I'm hoping that he continues to make those type of plays for us because we're going to need him down the stretch here.
Hey, Coach.
What's up, Brandon?
So the running back room, it seems like, has really expanded to 3 guys. I think they all had around 20 snaps last week between Roman, Antoine, and Colby. What do each of them kind of bring for the offense? What makes them unique?
They all, Roman is the guy, he's, the smart, tough, reliable guy that, consistently makes plays. But then when you look and see what Antoine brings and his power, his ability in the short yardage as well as third down, one of the things about Twan, his ability as a pass catcher and route runner, if I were to say a third down back, he'd be the guy you want because of his physicality and protection, but also his ability to win in space as a route runner. For a big guy, he's got great feet and great hands, and so he's very complimentary to what Roman has been. And then Colby is the changeup, and I'm so happy to see what Colby has been able to do with the opportunities that he's earned. And I say not given because he's been one of those guys maybe a year ago that found himself in the doghouse, and as I'd like to say, I use playing time to correct behaviors. And you know what? He kept his head down. He kept plugging away, and Twan opened the door for him when he got himself put on the bench. And now Colby made some plays, and we know that it's almost like the freshman Colby is back, and he's been practicing really well. So we've got 3 guys there, and then you throw in some of the other guys. The running back room is, to me, it's one of our strengths, and we have to continue to find ways to keep them all involved.
And then what kind of impact does it have having 3 different guys, especially that do so well in specific roles? What impact does that have on the group itself and the offense instead of maybe one guy doing all the work?
I just think in this day and age, and if you've ever followed teams that I've had a chance to be a part of, whether it's, as a coordinator here where we've used multiple running backs with Javon and we had Fleet Davis and Anthony McFarland, we've always kind of rotated and played guys and find roles. I think the more you can create roles for really good players, it helps keep guys here, because, again, you don't get better sitting on a bench. We realize that. And, anytime we can create roles in our offense or defense for players to play and create value for themselves, it helps us as a team. So it's great to see guys be unselfish and know that, you're not going to play 60 plays, you'll probably play 40, but you'll get opportunities because it's all about the touches for us with the skill guys on offense.
Hey, Coach, how are you?
What's up, Brandy?
Obviously, with Michigan State and everything going on with their coaching staff, obviously you guys as a coaching staff are pretty good about keeping everything, making sure you're focused on what you have to do, but is it difficult, and how do you make sure your locker room stays focused and kind of shuts all that outside noise out, even though it doesn't directly impact you guys but your opponent?
Yeah, I don't know how much our players even know. These guys don't watch TV. They don't. They play video games. They study tape. I don't know how much of what's going on at Michigan State they know. We've talked about that. Obviously they've lost their head coach, and when you watch tape as I told them, what you saw against Washington will not be the team that shows up Saturday. And I've been a part of a coaching change in the middle of the season. When I took over for Randy Edsall, we were fortunate because we had a bye week, and it gave us a week to kind of get it out our system. Well, those kids, unfortunately, didn't have an opportunity to get it out their system or flush, and it probably showed because the tape before that game, you know, they're the same Michigan State team. I mean, they're one of the top third down defenses in the country. I think they've given up 7 out of 37 third downs on defense down inside the goal line. I mean, they pride themselves on being a really tough short yardage goal line team, and it shows. They're one of the top teams in terms of sacks in the country. So I expect them, especially with, you know, what they've been through, to kind of take that us against the world mentality that we've seen around here. And that's why for us, we better be prepared that, you know, this won't be the team that you saw against Washington. I think it'll be more of the original version, but with a little more oomph behind it because of what they've been through and the adversity they're facing together. I think it'll bring them together. And
how do you game plan for something like that, knowing that it's going to be a completely different team that you might have seen, you know, in the first couple weeks?
Well, it's about us. But like I've said here many a times, the opponent really doesn't matter. We do study their tendencies, what they do well, and try to create ways to stop those things. But it'll be more what we do and focus on. It's almost like playing an opening game again, because you don't know. And so when you don't know what the opponent is going to do to attack you, you focus on yourself and making sure you're doing the things you do well. And for us, that's what we've tried to do as we prepare.
Hey, Coach, I know that you talk a lot about culture and how that's kind of built itself up in the past few years. I wanted to ask about a specific guy in Isaac Bunyan. How have you seen his role kind of change as a leader in the locker room from walking on onto where he now is, taking on that role in the locker room today?
Yeah, you know, Ike is one of those guys that even when he was a walk-on, you know, he's on scholarship obviously now, but even when he came in as a walk-on, you never saw him, he didn't present himself like a walk-on. He's been a leader from day one. He was one of those guys we put on our leadership council as a walk-on to represent that demographic on our team. And, you know, he came in here an engineering major, now he switched over to poli-sci. And, I mean, he does a tremendous job in the community. He does a tremendous job in our locker room. He embodies what I would hope this program is all about, because you see him come in a kind of a shy, maybe introverted personality, and now he's a guy that, you know, we see he's been our defensive player of the game. He's rotating in and playing a lot of plays for us and has really created value for himself within our program. And I think it gives hope to other guys that may come in as walk-ons. You see a guy like Connor Fagan starting 2 games for us and, you know, coming in as a walk-on tight end. And you know, if we're a developmental program, and Ike has benefited from our program, and we've benefited from Ike.
Hey, Coach.
Taylor.
With Jayshon Barham last week, he played a season high in snaps, almost double what he did the previous week. Was that, you know, kind of intentional? Was there a matchup you saw that you can maybe exploit or an adjustment going into the week, or was that just kind of how the game ended up going?
You know, obviously kind of how the game went. You know, it was a tough game early. And our best players played quite a bit. Jayshon is one of our leaders on the defensive side of the ball, really productive player. As we enter into our conference season, we realize we're going to need him. And so we continue to play the players and develop them throughout and have him ready to be able to go as we enter conference season. Thanks, guys.
It's lower leg. Yeah, both running backs have lower leg injuries, so, you know, hopefully sooner than later. But, you know, it's just day to day, week to week, I guess, at this point.
Will Luke be there Saturday?
I don't know. You know, we'll see. Yeah, because, you know, he's on crutches right now, so I don't know if that's realistic. He will eventually. Yeah, he'll be with us.
I think one of the players said his mom's here. I mean, it's a tough time for Luke, obviously. Is he having surgery this week? What's the situation?
Yeah, it should be probably over right now, or at least close to being done. Yeah, it's a tough deal. And, you know, I've said it before, and it's a little bit like Noah's situation. When you deal with the injuries or things that, you know, take a player off the field, it's just tough, you know, because there's a human aspect to this too, and we all lose sight of that. I know, because especially in football, guys got helmets on. They're like gladiators out there in the field. But these guys are college kids, and they got feelings. And then, you know, when it pertains to any athlete in the Big Ten or anywhere across the country, they invest so much in it's not who they are, but it's such a big part of what they do, and they spend so much time working for it. And I don't want to say have that robbed, but to miss out on something that they look forward to, it's really tough.
It was such a gruesome-looking injury. Was it a clean break? Is that why?
Yeah, I mean, if there's such a good thing as a good situation and a bad one, that's what we had here. So that's the good news. And it's routine if it's somebody else's. I hate that word when you talk about medicine or medical procedures, but there's nothing out of the ordinary there. And you think about a guy like Sheriff or Drake Kulik, kind of had something similar. So, he should be fine. Hasn't slowed Sheriff down at all, and nor Drake, once they came back. But it's tough in the meantime.
Kirk, I want to ask you about the passing game with Cade. Have you seen that develop through the first 3 weeks, and do you feel like it's moving in the right direction?
Yeah, I definitely do. I mean, it's just kind of talking about injuries. When guys can't practice or they can't practice full speed, it impacts everything. And that's players at all level. NFL guys are no different. If they're not on the field getting the work they need to get at some point, it catches up. So I think that's been the biggest deterrent, and that all took place back in August, and that's just one of those. It was a random injury, but it was real, and had to deal with it. And the good news is it's gotten better week to week, and he's been able to do more in practice. So there's more to it than just throwing the ball, but you also got to call the plays, be involved in the cadence, all those kinds of things. So, I think it's like a lot of things. It's just a matter of us just keep chipping away here and feel really good about the people involved right now. So it's just a matter of trying to improve our execution week to week. Hopefully with each week of practice, we'll see better execution out there. And this is going to be a tough test here because you're going into a tough environment against a team that's really athletic and very opportunistic on defense. So it's going to be another step up. But good news is he's a veteran player who's done it, and at least he's got that to draw upon. But you still need to be, in the here and now too in terms of practice.
Urban Meyer said that Whiteout was worth a 10-point advantage. I was just curious, 2009, you look up and you see 100,000 white T-shirts. What do you remember about that environment?
Yeah, I think it's closer to 110, and that 10-point became 17 points real fast in 09. We always talk about getting off to a good start, especially on the road, just to try to take the crowd out of it. We did just the exact opposite of that in 09. And, next thing you know, it's 17-0. We're looking up, the place is going crazy. But the rest of the story there is it's a 60-minute game. And, when you're playing a team as talented as these guys are and as good as they are, well coached as they are, there's going to be some lows too hopefully we create some highs, but there's going to be some lows, and you just got to keep playing. And, if you're fortunate, you can make it a 60-minute game. That's the whole idea. But easier said than done because, these guys really haven't played in a close game yet. And, so that first things first is make it close. And you got to try to figure out how to make it go in the fourth quarter. But, it's to play in a raucous environment like that, it's good to be the home team for sure.
Obviously, you can't replace a guy like Luke Lachey, but what kind of expectations do you have for Steven Stilianos, Addison Ostrenga? What have you seen from them?
Yeah, no different than a week ago or, 3 weeks ago or, a couple of years ago, just basically for everybody. Just want everybody to do their best and keep working and, play as well as they can play. And the good news is, Addie's a guy that we threw in there last year, pretty much out of need and really responded well. He's been pretty consistent that way, and I thought he did a good job Saturday. He'll keep getting better the more he plays. Steve's a guy that I mentioned in the spring who's starting to emerge. I'm not saying it's a Zach Van Valkenburg story, but very similar. Year two, coming from a smaller skier, year two, just, has a lot more confidence now and a lot more competency. So I thought he did a good job Saturday, and we'll use him more now just by pure numbers. And like I said, Piscuzzi jumped in there and did a good job too. So, we like to have 4 guys at least that we can put in the game. And, Eric's done a good job, and, he's a veteran guy too. So the group will be fine. We're better with Luke. That's all. It's obvious on a couple levels, just playing wise, but also leadership.
How have you seen Jamar Harris when he was out for as long as he was? How did he stay engaged?
Yeah, it's kind of the same discussion. He was good that way, and he's been able to practice this year. But the biggest thing is that game time you miss, and both he and Cade could be in the same discussion, and that, these guys didn't play last year at all, and that's so he missed practice time, and then in Cade's case, he's missed practice time this year because of an injury. Jamari's because of the suspension, and you can't substitute that either. So the practice time's important, and then game time's important. Both these guys are coming off a long layoff, and the good news is I think they're just they'll climb. And they'll climb faster than the guy that's never played. That's the other good part about it, because they both have experience. So Jamari's had a good week so far this week, and his attitude's great, and I'm confident he'll play well Saturday.
Kirk, when you look back at 09 specifically, to go down 10-0 in 2 drives, and then how did you guys A, keep your composure, and then B, what was the impact of Claiborne's block punt, not only in that game but the big picture?
Yeah, you just you have no choice. You have to try to keep your composure. It's easier said than done, because it's easy to buckle in a situation like that. But that was a good football team that we had, and those guys hung tough. And you find a way. You make a couple plays. You never know how it's going to come, where it's going to come from. And Claiborne's thing was it was one guy's outstanding effort, basically, because it wasn't a punt block that called, but he was just doing his job. We have one guy pressing the punter in case, make sure the guy gets the ball out, and he beat his guy that was supposed to be blocking him, and then it was a great sound. I'll never forget that sound. It's a really good sound or a really bad sound, depending on what sideline you're on, and then the ball comes right up to his bread basket, and he took it and ran. And that he's a special player and a special person, and it's funny how that works sometimes too. Guys like that just spark a team, and then after that we had a little different demeanor the rest of the way.
Being from Pennsylvania, does it mean anything more to you to walk into that stadium, into that whiteout, and memories of this rivalry?
Yeah, I carry a chip on my shoulder because they didn't recruit me, and I always joke about that. The obvious reason was they were trying to win. They were trying to win then, trying to win now, and they didn't recruit guys that ran 5 flat 40s at linebacker that weighed 200 pounds. So I've forgiven them. It's 50 years later. I'm over that, I think, but. I've always had great respect for the program. It's always, represented what football should be like, and they've been awfully good. I'll go back, throw trivia at you, how old I am, but it's either 68 or 69. They were playing Kansas, so it was old. They were playing Kansas in the Orange Bowl, and they stopped Penn State like 2 or 3 plays in a row down on the goal line, and then the refs figured out there were 12 guys on the field. So they got penalized, and then they got another crack, and Penn State won the game. I want to say it was like 15-14. I can't remember the score. But I just remember that, how to go 3 plays without anybody detecting that. And the officials didn't figure it out. But I remember that game vividly. I think Denny Onconce might have been like a linebacker. It was linebacker U, and Steve Schmier and Mike Reed might have been playing. I don't know. But I was a fan of theirs as a kid, obviously, because they were good, and Pitt wasn't any good. So that's the way it is. But yeah, I've gotten over that non-recruitment part.
Deontay Vines shared that his uncle passed away a week before he scored that touchdown this Saturday. Were you aware of that, and just thoughts on Deontay's performance, especially considering that?
Yeah, Deontay, I was aware of that. He shared that with us, and again, tying in with the injury situation. Again, there's a real human aspect, and when you have a team of 100+ players, you can imagine. It's just, there's always, not always, but frequently something going on, family members. And again, we're talking about just impacting lives. And it's easy for us sometimes, I say, just in general terms, to overlook that stuff, or you forget those things because we're all focused on the games and performance and all that kind of stuff. And each and every one of these guys have personal lives, all from very diverse backgrounds and things going on. And, so it's something that just seems to be, there's always something going on somewhere on the football team with someone's story. And how they choose to handle it is up to them. And, we respect that. And I think it was about a year ago this time, Lee Sean was back, I believe, for a funeral somewhere in that ballpark. So it's tough. And how the players try to deal with it. Again, that's kind of personal, but we try to support him in each and every way. And as it pertains to Dante, he's just had a great career. I mean, he's had so much hardship, and it's just good to see him out there playing. I think he's having fun right now. He's able to practice every day, and it sounds pretty mundane and basic, but those are things he hasn't been able to do during his career without, having some brace on his wrist or whatever, So it's just good to see him, playing the way he wants to, and I think, envisioned himself when he came here a couple of years ago.
Seemingly wherever you're ranked, wherever Penn State is ranked, it's been a competitive matchup. I think 4 of the last 5 within 1 possession. What is it that you think leads to such competitive Iowa-Penn State games?
I don't know. I mean, it's one of those deals, and it's funny in conference play. Sometimes some teams match up that way and some don't. 16 games a real good reminder what it can be like if we're not really ready to go. And that was really ugly, really fast, and that's just a reminder. I mean, they've got a really talented football team right now, but that's not totally new to them. If we're ranked or not ranked, where we're ranked, if you're past probably 8 or 10 right now, it really doesn't matter at this time of year. It'll be more significant in November. But if you're in the top 10, you're probably a top 10 team. Again, I don't think anybody's surprised Penn State's up there right now just because of the way they played last year, the way they finished. And again, they lose a really good quarterback, but they have a guy that might be better right now. So, when you're in a position to do that kind of stuff, it's not a surprise they're ranked the way they are. And, but again, we're at the other end, and we need to be thinking about, the what ifs, and we better be ready to go here. I'm sorry, you were asking a question.
Yeah, what do you remember about recruiting Deontay?
Not an awful lot other than, so I've got a tie to Pennsylvania, I've got a tie to Connecticut too, and things have really changed up there. It's ironic right now, our 2 starting receivers are both from that state. It's got nothing to do with me going to college, I can promise you that. Ken O'Keefe recruited up there and knows the area. But my point there is that high school football has really changed quite a bit. The prep schools up there in Connecticut have done they're much different than they were 10 years ago or even, probably 20 years ago, obviously. So, it was just one of those things where we matched up. He was very interested in us. We were more than interested in him, and just ended up being a really good match. So we're glad to have him. He's a great young guy and great family.
There's a bit of a sour taste in Penn State's mouth after the 2021 game. There was a little bit of controversy about accusations of flopping. Obviously, they lost their quarterback, lost the lead, lost the game. Are you expecting a little bit of extra juice out of them coming into a game like this?
Not really. I don't know how many of their players were here in 21, and I don't know how many of our guys were here either. And then probably like me, not many of them remember much about it other than it was a tough game. We had to make a big play to really get back into it. And, I think, once you play a game, it's usually pretty much goes to rest and you move on to the next season or whatever, next game. So, I don't think it's a big deal there.
Along those lines, was that something that you addressed at all with James Franklin afterward?
No, there's nothing to talk about other than congratulations or good luck. In fact, there's no good thing to say. I'll share this with you. After 20-some years of being a head coach, I don't know of a good thing to say afterwards other than good luck. What do you say? If you win or lose, what do you say? It's not much to say. So, good luck.
The long touchdown that Western Michigan had, what all did you see go wrong?
Yeah, obviously a breakdown in technique and communication. And one thing I do know is that, you can't play good defense if you don't tackle. And then the other thing, if you give up big plays, and they usually go together. But we didn't even have a chance to tackle on that one because of just, miscommunication. And that, all 3 phases, it's like electricity in the water. It's just a bad combination. Bad things really can happen fast if not everybody's on the same page. And it's really kind of what happened there. And then, some poor technique on top of it. So, we better not do that again, or it's, because we won't be able to survive, easy touchdowns like that.
One thing about that 09 game, I know we're talking about it a lot, but you ran the ball pretty well that day with Robinson and Wager. Given what you did this last Saturday, do you feel more confidence that you can establish some run up there? Obviously, you probably have to, right?
It would certainly be helpful. It's hard to find people that beat these guys because they haven't lost many games in the last, 50 years, 60 years. But, the teams that beat them last year did run the ball a little bit successfully, and that's always, but that's a truism in football. If you can run successfully, unless you just throw it every snap, and if you're throwing it every snap, at least if we're throwing it every snap, that's not going to be good. Some teams are designed that way, we're not. So, yeah, you got to try to find a way. But these guys are a really unique challenge. They're very aggressive, very athletic, and they make it tough on you.
So with Kamari and Terrell both fully in the game plans.
Oh yeah. I mean, they're all three of those guys are in there, and Max jumped in. It was great to see him get a touchdown. I mean, he's worked hard, and I won't say he's a crowd favorite, but he's a team favorite. I mean, the guys all pull for the guys that are doing scout team work and things like that. But yeah, those two young guys have been. This can be a little different arena though than for what they're used to, but. That's part, they're going to find out now. So here we go.
Kirk, when we've talked about the wide receivers, you've kind of mentioned staying patient, staying with the process. With Luke going down his injury, does that kind of accelerate maybe the process a little bit with the wide receivers to get them more involved, or how are you kind of approaching it with Luke?
Yeah, no, Penn State will kind of dictate what happens there, but the receivers are doing a really good job. It's just I think they've really practiced well. I think they're doing well on the field, and. Yeah, I got total confidence in that group, and we have confidence in our tight ends. We still have a good group there. We'd be better with Luke, obviously, but we still have a good group. So we're not going to just change our whole approach by any stretch. So let's keep trying to figure out what's the best way to maybe give us a chance to move the ball against these guys.
Caleb Brown got his first touch this last weekend in that game against Western Michigan. Did you see his reaction? Just thoughts on getting him involved? And
it's good to get anybody involved, especially if it's the first time. It's just a positive, and it's not part of our game plan necessarily, but he is part of our game plan in that he's in our rotation and has done a really, really good job. And said earlier, I think he's on the, if you will, he's still in a developmental mode a little bit, but he works hard every day. He's got a good skill set, and it's just a matter of time. He'll get some production too.
Coach, with Penn State's ability to really kind of defend the pass well, especially with the corners, I guess, is there a greater emphasis on getting that run game going as early as possible?
It'd just be helpful in general if we can do that. We're better if we can play balanced, or at least have the throw to be unbalanced. And if they make you, especially this team, if they make you one-dimensional, and they can get after the quarterback very aggressively, and they got a bunch of guys up front that can move, and they're really slippery and just crafty. So yeah, if it gets into one of those games, I don't think that's a good thing for us, and it'd be better if we could. But again, easier said than done.
When you look at the quarterback, just a true sophomore, what impresses you about his play?
Composure. I mean, he's very talented. He's a big guy. He can run and throw, and but he's really just seems very relaxed and in command and very composed back there. And I'll go back to he got extensive playing time in the opening game a year ago. I think it was the first game in the Big Ten last year against Purdue on that Thursday night. He played a lot and really did a good job. So I mean, it's not like he didn't look like he was out of place at all. And now, he's got the keys to the car, so he's doing a really good job with it.
You were mentioning Ontario, and we keep on hearing from players about his speed. What do you think is kind of the next steps for him in his development?
Same, just the key word you said, development. He just what we're asking him to do is totally different. Not unlike all the guys that are playing on the defensive line. We play a little bit differently than some people, and so there's a learned aspect to it, and I think that's what he's going through right now. And talked to him last week, just reminding him that Y.A. Black wasn't Y.A. Black 3 years ago. Same thing with Logan Lee. Go down the line, any of the guys, but especially those interior guys. There's a real art to playing in there. It's something you learn how to do. And I mentioned a guy like Y.A. Black, who's pretty big human being. And Brady Reef played very successfully in there, 260, 265. Carl Klug. So we've had all kinds of body types in there. Antero is a really talented guy. He's a great young guy, good attitude, and he's a tough guy. He's just got to learn how to play, and then with that will come, playing faster and a little bit more effectiveness that way.
How much of the pass rush or lack thereof is kind of based more on the quick game that the other teams are throwing at you versus not having somebody who can really get to the quarterback?
Yeah, I think we have guys that can get there if they get a chance. It just, a lot of that stuff is a couple things. Sack numbers are important. Obviously, you'd rather have them than not have them, but they don't tell the whole story. Can you be disruptive? And then to your point on the quick game, sometimes getting your hands up is more disruptive than, trying to get pressure on a guy if the ball's coming out pretty fast. So, it's a little bit more, you got to move past the stats, I think, and just really go off what you're seeing on the tape. And, I think we got a couple guys that can be disruptive there. We just haven't had that opportunity really yet.
With the development Sebastian Castro's had since he's been here, was there a time, like a conversation or a play or anything where you kind of saw things kind of click for him?
I think it was the bowl game last year, is where that month, not just the game itself, but that month, things happen faster. And I don't mean this, how do I want to say this? But like our opponent right now, and there are a couple teams in our conference where their guys, they jump in and move faster. It's a quicker. They get there quicker to the. You never make it to the end line, but you know what I mean. They play a little bit more proficiently, a little quicker because they may come in a little bit more advanced than a lot of our guys. We're not getting a lot of 5-star guys that my sister Jewel could say, yeah, take that guy, that guy, that guy. So, there's a little bit of a learning curve or a growing curve, and whether it's physically or learning how to play, all those kinds of things factor in. But that's just the world we've lived in for quite some time. We're comfortable there. But I guess my point is, and I think it's true at every school, not just here, whether you're, a top 5 program or a bottom 5, everybody develops. If you're doing things right, you should be getting better with each week, every day. And, but it's all player driven, really. The player.